Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening.
There is a lot that UFC 6 throws at you. Punches, kicks, elbows, knees, clinches, submissions, transitions, the list goes on. And if you don't know about each of these things, you're probably going to lose to them. So in the interest of making you a more complete mixed martial artist, here are 9 tips that you need to know in UFC 6. While previous UFC games have had small differences in each fighter's stats, along with their own unique mixture of techniques, stats, and perks, you could generally adapt one of the few game plans and apply it to nearly every character. In UFC 6 though, an effort was made to make every fighter feel much more unique, and as such, it has become much more important to really learn how your fighter can best play the game. So when you decide on what fighter you want to use, take some time to dig into their perks and move list, and especially learn what their flow state perk is. Flow states are potentially fight-changing power-ups that differ from fighter to fighter. The Unbreakable perk, for example, lets fighters who activate flow state to take less damage for 12 seconds, encouraging them to be a little more reckless with their strikes. In order to get your flow state as often as possible, you'll also want to know your flow boosts, which will give you an extra bonus to your flow meter if you perform specific actions. Each fighter has 5 perks and 5 flow boosts, so craft your game plan around them to make sure that you're squeezing out every advantage that your fighter gets. When you're looking through your move list, make a mental note of what moves have 4 and 5 stars and consider those your go-to special techniques that you'll want to prioritize over others. You could also look through and remember some of the more unique and situational techniques that each character has, like spinning kicks, flying submissions, etc.
Watch closely. John, here's a submission attempt. It's starting to get tight.
At lower levels of play, it can be tempting to just absolutely blitz an opponent, overwhelming them with offense to the point where their defense just gets overloaded. And you may even find a bit of success early on if you play like this. But don't let that fool you into thinking that this is a viable strategy against anyone that knows this game on anything beyond a casual level. Because once the opponent weathers the storm, you'll be in a terrible position as the fight goes on, due to you blowing a bunch of your stamina early on in the match. Not to mention the fact that if you're being predictable with your spam, you're also more likely to get counter hit, which will be really bad for you. This goes for the ground game too. Don't just spam the obvious direction to escape. When you get taken down, instead of just immediately going for the get up option, wait for a beat, try to block their transition if they go for it to reduce their stamina, and if all they're doing is just waiting, land some punches from below to increase your grapple advantage before going for the transition. Above all else, being predictable will get you knocked out and submitted in UFC 6, so even if it means making a choice that isn't the most optimal in a situation, make sure that you're not being easy to read. A big mistake that newcomers to the UFC series make when it comes to the stand-up game is that they'll just hold forward regardless of their distance and start swinging flurries of punches. What they might not know is that holding forward and pressing a button is a different attack than just pressing the button by itself. Holding forward and pressing attack is meant for when you're at a far distance and looking to close that gap while also letting loose a strike. As such, it's much slower than just pressing the button. So if you're already in the pocket and you're looking to exchange strikes or just let loose a flurry, let go of the left stick and just press the buttons. Your attacks will come out much faster and you're more likely to get the better of the exchange. UFC 6 is not like a traditional fighting game where you need to know combos to be able to do substantial damage, but knowing a handful definitely will help you level up your stand-up game, especially if you're playing as a fighter with very good stand-up. UFC's stand-up system is a little more freeform than before, so every character should be able to throw any combination of punches, but if they have the combo in their moveset, meaning it's part of their repertoire of techniques, that combo will be faster and will consume less stamina. Definitely lean on your basic jab hook combinations, but also take a look deeper into the move list and try to commit some of the more advanced combos to memory that alternate between hitting the body and the head, so you keep your opponent guessing as to where you're going to hit next. The reason why becoming predictable is so dangerous in UFC 6 is that everything has a hard counter, and if you're playing against someone who knows how to counter your offense, you're going to whiff and eat a lot of shots to the face. So if you're up against someone who is constantly peppering your face with a fast jab, throw some left and right head movement in there and punish with a hook when you slip their punch. Hooks are countered by sways or ducks, so either dodge away or dodge towards them when you feel a hook coming to make them pay. Well-timed uppercuts and knees will call out ducks and will also deal big damage if you manage to catch a fighter shooting for a takedown. Body kicks can be caught with a well-timed bodyguard. Leg kicks can be checked and will end up doing big damage to the attacker's legs. Takedown attempts can be stuffed early to give you an advantageous position, etc. If there's ever anything that you're unsure of the counterplay to, spend some time looking through the game's manual and you'll definitely find some sort of answer. This is again covered by the golden rule of don't be predictable, but it deserves some extra mention because it's really tempting to focus 90% of your offense on the opponent's head. It's the quickest way to end a fight, it'll lead to a satisfying knockout, and it's the part of the body where the damage is most easily visible. That said, if you're only, or mostly only, going for the head, you're basically cutting the amount of things that your opponent has to be on the lookout for by half, which makes you much easier to defend against. Just like in real fighting, the body is what opens up the head. By attacking the body, you force your opponent to either switch their guard or continue eating shots that will dramatically slow down their own strikes and reduce their max stamina over the course of the fight. If you target the legs, you limit their ability to move. Consider body shots an investment that will pay off handsomely over time. This is, of course, UFC and not Fight Night, and as such, the ground game is a core part of the experience. Even if your fighter isn't very good on the ground, you need to know the basics of how the system works so that you don't just get taken down and submitted for free. You don't need to know every single ground position, but you should know what the really bad ones to be in are. Being mounted, inside control, and having someone on your back are by far the worst places to be. When you're mounted, you're opened up to a multitude of submissions, and if the opponent postures up, you're looking to take significant head damage. You do have some defensive options here though. You can use the right stick to move your head left and right to dodge straight punches, or hold the left bumper and move the right stick to try and post the incoming hook. Successfully doing either of these things will substantially drain the attacker's offense, filling your grapple advantage meter. Once that's full, you can press R2 to reverse the position and move to a more advantageous one. When it comes to defending against submissions, you basically need to decide whether you want to try to escape the submission by moving the stick to the left or right, defend against the opponent's attempt to finish the submission by holding the right trigger and pressing up, or defend their attempt to use the submission as a way to transition into a dominant position by holding the right trigger and pressing down. Every undefended submission finish drains your submission resilience, and can often leave you with an injury as you do an automatic desperate escape. Once your submission resilience is depleted, you tap out. Once again, try not to be predictable. If you get put in a submission, you can kind of chill until you see your opponent start to go for something. Just like how you'd check the move list for stand-up fighters to know what your best options are, you should also check out the move list for ground specialists to see what kind of unique options they have on the ground. They might have a really strong position reversal in a specific position, or submission chains that are harder to read and enhance the strength of the next submission. Between high attacks, low attacks, linear straights, hooks, takedowns, clinches, etc., there's a lot to defend against in UFC 6. So much so that really the best defense is to simply not be there when the attack is thrown. In this way, UFC 6 is a lot like a traditional fighting game where you want to move in and out of your opponent's range to try and bait them into throwing out a move that they're not in the proper range for, giving you an opportunity to punish their recovery. On the flip side of that, make sure you know the ranges of your attacks as well. Don't use uppercuts when you're at any distance other than right in front of your opponent. Don't whiff your body or head kicks, and don't just autopilot throwing a bunch of hooks when the opponent has already disengaged. Missing punches is very detrimental to your stamina and will be a quick way to become exhausted as the fight goes on. Finally, make sure that you're making use of the game's training mode. Work on your combinations, learn what the various transitions look like so that you know which direction to press when you're trying to deny them, turn on the frame meter and get a sense for how fast your moves are, how wide the punishment windows are, etc. And those are 9 tips to help you master the Octagon in UFC 6. Thanks for watching, and for more UFC 6, keep it here on IGN.